The war was finally over. 30 long years of fighting, dying, and suffering had come to an end. The Galactic Dominion, the mighty empire that ruled over hundreds of worlds, had been defeated. Humanity had won. Captain Jack Morrison stood in the grand hall of the Imperial Palace on Zelthera Prime. The building was massive, with walls that seemed to reach into the sky. Strange alien lights floated in the air, casting colorful shadows on the polished floor. All around him were other human soldiers, men and women who had fought just as hard as he had. They wore their uniforms with pride, medals shining on their chests. Jack was tired, not just physically tired, though his body ached from countless battles. He was tired in his soul. 30 years was a long time to fight. He had seen too many friends die. He had lost too much. The Dominion had started this war. They thought humans would be easy to conquer. They thought Earth was weak. They were wrong. Humans fought back harder than anyone expected. Planet by planet, system by system, humanity pushed the alien empire back. Now the Dominion was broken and the war was done. But winning came with traditions. The Dominion had strange customs, and one of them was about prizes. When warriors won a great victory, they could claim something from the defeated. The human leaders decided to follow this custom as part of the peace agreement. Each high-ranking officer could choose a prize. 7 alien princesses stood in a line before the human victors. They came from different worlds that the Dominion had conquered long ago. Each one was different. Some were tall, some were short. Some had scales. Others had fur or skin like humans. They all looked nervous. Jack watched as other officers made their choices. Commander Ryan Blake stepped forward first. He was a big man with a loud voice and absolute confidence. He walked straight to Princess Zarazel, a warrior princess from a militaristic species. She commanded 3 battle fleets and controlled a system rich with resources. Ryan smiled as he claimed her. Everyone nodded with approval. It was a smart choice. Next came Captain Lisa Hayes. She chose Princess Thelmora, whose planet sat on top of mountains of rare crystals used in advanced technology. Another good choice. The princess looked proud, almost happy to be chosen by a human officer. One by one, the human officers made their selections. They all chose powerful princesses, ones with armies, ones with money, ones with political influence. It made sense. These prizes would help humanity become even stronger. Jack's turn came last. He walked forward slowly, his boots clicking on the smooth floor. All eyes turned to him. He was famous among humans, a hero who had won impossible battles. Everyone wondered which princess he would choose. There were 2 left. Princess Velzara stood tall and beautiful, her blue skin shimmering in the light. She ruled a wealthy trading world and had connections to merchant guilds across the galaxy, a perfect choice for someone who wanted to build economic power. And then there was Princess Lyra. She stood at the end of the line, almost like she was trying to hide. She was small for her species, the Valkesh. Her people were known for being tall and strong, but Lyra looked fragile. Her skin was pale, almost gray. Her eyes were large and dark, filled with fear. She wore simple clothes, not the fancy robes the other princesses wore. Jack had read her file. Princess Lyra ruled over a moon called Haven's Rest. It wasn't even a real planet, just a small moon orbiting a gas giant in a forgotten corner of space. She had no army, no fleet, no wealth. Her kingdom was just a collection of old buildings and refugee camps. She was, by every measure, the weakest princess there. The hall was quiet as Jack walked past Princess Velsara. The blue-skinned princess looked shocked. Where was he going? Whispers started spreading through the crowd. Some of the alien princesses began to laugh quietly. They knew where he was going, and they thought it was hilarious. Jack stopped in front of Lyra. She looked up at him with those big, frightened eyes. She was shaking slightly. He could see her trying to be brave, but she was clearly terrified. "Princess Lyra," Jack said softly. His voice was gentle, not harsh like the others expected. She didn't say anything. She just stared at him. Jack did something that surprised everyone. He slowly lowered himself to one knee. In human culture, this was a sign of respect, not dominance. He held out his hand to her, palm up, offering, not demanding. "I choose you," he said clearly so everyone could hear. For a moment, nobody moved. The entire hall was frozen in shock. Then the whispers exploded into noise. Aliens were chattering in their various languages. Human officers were talking loudly, confused, and surprised. Some were even laughing. "Has he lost his mind?" someone said behind Jack. "She has nothing, no power, no resources. What a waste of a choice!" Commander Ryan Blake pushed through the crowd. "Jack, what are you doing? You can still change your mind. Take Velsara. She's still available." Jack stood up but kept his hand extended to Lyra. "I've made my choice." "But why? She's useless. That moon of hers is nothing but refugees and broken buildings. You could have had real power." Jack looked at Ryan, his face calm. "I know what I'm doing." Ryan threw up his hands and walked away, shaking his head. The other officers were all talking, some angry, some just confused. They had respected Jack as a brilliant commander. Now they wondered if the war had broken his mind. Princess Lyra still hadn't moved. She was staring at Jack's extended hand like it might be a trap. Slowly, very slowly, she reached out. Her hand was small and delicate in his rough, scarred one. "Why?" she whispered. Her voice was soft, musical even in its fear. "Why choose me?" Jack helped her to her feet. "You'll understand soon enough." The ceremony continued, but everyone was still talking about Jack's choice. It was the strangest thing anyone had seen. A war hero, a man who could have claimed real power, had chosen the weakest princess in the room. It made no sense. As the crowd slowly dispersed, Jack led Lyra toward the exit. She walked beside him, confused and afraid. She kept glancing at him, trying to understand. Was he cruel? Was this some kind of punishment? Would he hurt her for being weak? But when Jack looked at her, his eyes weren't cruel. They were sad, but kind. Something else was there, too. Something that looked almost like understanding. Outside the palace, Jack's ship waited. It was called the Defender, a mid-sized military vessel. Not the biggest ship in the fleet, but reliable and strong. His crew was waiting at the boarding ramp. A young woman with red hair saluted. "Captain Morrison, is this the—" She paused, looking at Lyra with obvious surprise. "Is this your choice, sir?" "Yes, Lieutenant Brown. This is Princess Lyra. She'll have the guest quarters. Make sure she has everything she needs." "Yes, sir." The lieutenant tried to hide her confusion, but it showed on her face. As they boarded the ship, Lyra looked back at the palace one last time. She still didn't understand what was happening. Everyone else thought she was worthless. Why didn't this human captain think the same? Jack noticed her looking back. "Don't worry," he said quietly. "You're safe now." But Lyra didn't feel safe. She felt more confused than ever. Safe from what? Safe from whom? And why would this human warrior, this decorated captain who had defeated entire fleets, choose her? The ship's engines hummed to life. Soon they would leave this planet behind and travel to her small moon, to Haven's Rest, to her home. Lyra had no idea that her life was about to change forever, and she had no idea that Jack Morrison's choice would eventually change the entire galaxy. The Defender traveled through space at high speed. Stars stretched into long lines outside the windows as the ship jumped between systems. It would take 3 days to reach Haven's Rest, 3 days that felt like an eternity for Princess Lyra. She stayed in her quarters most of the time. The room was nice, much nicer than her own bedroom back home. It had a comfortable bed, a private bathroom, and a large window that showed the stars outside. But Lyra felt like a prisoner, even though no one had locked her door. She didn't understand why Captain Morrison had chosen her. Every time she tried to figure it out, she came up with terrible answers. Maybe he wanted to humiliate her. Maybe he thought a weak princess would be easy to control. Maybe he would take over Haven's Rest and throw out all the refugees she had been protecting. The thought made her sick with worry. Those refugees were her responsibility. They had nowhere else to go. On the first day, Lieutenant Brown brought her food. The young woman with red hair was polite but clearly confused about the whole situation. "The captain wanted to make sure you're comfortable," she said, setting down a tray. "If you need anything, just use the communicator on the wall." "Thank you," Lyra said quietly. Lieutenant Brown paused at the door. "Can I ask you something, Princess?" "Yes?" "Why do you think the captain chose you?" Lyra shook her head. "I don't know. I've been asking myself the same thing." The lieutenant left, and Lyra was alone again. She barely touched her food. She was too nervous to eat. On the second day, Captain Morrison invited her to join him for dinner. Lyra was terrified, but she couldn't refuse. She put on her cleanest dress and walked to the captain's dining room with shaking hands. Jack was already there, sitting at a small table. He had changed out of his uniform and wore simple civilian clothes. He stood up when she entered, which surprised her. Most powerful people didn't stand for someone like her. "Please, sit," he said, gesturing to a chair. Lyra sat down carefully. The table had food on it, human food that she didn't recognize. There was also some Valkesh food, which surprised her even more. Someone had researched what her species ate. "I hope the food is okay," Jack said. "My cook did her best to prepare something you might like." It's very kind. Thank you." They ate in silence for a while. Jack didn't force conversation. He seemed content to just eat quietly. This confused Lyra even more. Wasn't he going to tell her what he wanted? Wasn't he going to make demands? Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. "Captain Morrison, I need to know, what do you want from me?" Jack looked up from his plate. His eyes were dark blue and there was sadness in them. "I don't want anything from you, Princess Lyra. But you chose me. There must be a reason." "There is a reason, but I want you to see Haven's Rest first. Then I'll explain everything. Will you hurt my people, the refugees?" Jack's expression softened. "No, I promise you. I have no intention of hurting anyone on your moon." "Then why? I have no money, no army, no power. I'm useless to you." "You're not useless," Jack said firmly. "You're one of the most important people I've ever met." Lyra stared at him. "That makes no sense." "I know it doesn't. Not yet. But it will." After dinner, Jack asked if she wanted to see the ship. Lyra agreed, mostly because she was tired of sitting in her room. He showed her around the Defender, introducing her to various crew members. Everyone was polite to her. But she could see the confusion in their eyes. They didn't understand the captain's choice either. In the medical bay, Lyra stopped. She saw the equipment, the medicine, the beds for injured crew members. Without thinking, she walked closer to examine a healing machine. "This is a Mark 7 regenerator," she said, touching it gently. "It's outdated but reliable." The ship's doctor, an older woman named Dr. Helen Carter, looked surprised. "You know medical equipment?" "I was a medical officer before I inherited my title." "Really? What kind of medicine did you practice?" Lyra and the doctor started talking. For the first time since leaving Zelthara Prime, Lyra forgot to be afraid. She talked about surgeries she had performed, diseases she had treated, new techniques she had learned. Dr. Carter listened with interest, asking questions and sharing her own experiences. Jack watched from the doorway. He didn't interrupt. He just listened. Later that night, as they walked back to the residential area, Lyra was quiet again. But it was a different kind of quiet. Less afraid, more thoughtful. "You were a doctor?" Jack asked. "Yes, a long time ago." "What happened?" Lyra was silent for a moment. Then she started talking. The story came out slowly at first, then faster, like water breaking through a dam. She told him about the Dominion's expansion wars, how they conquered world after world, how they treated the defeated people terribly, forcing them into slavery or killing them outright. She told him about Haven's Rest, a forgotten moon that nobody cared about. The previous ruler, an old Valkesh noble named Lord Terran, had decided to use it as a sanctuary. "He was kind," Lyra said softly. "He saw the suffering and wanted to help. He brought refugees there, gave them shelter and food. I was just a doctor helping in his medical centers." "What happened to him?" "The Dominion found out what he was doing. They sent ships to destroy Haven's Rest and kill all the refugees. Lord Terran, he took every defensive ship we had and went to meet them. He fought to give the refugees time to hide. He died in that battle. So did everyone who went with him." Lyra's eyes were wet with tears. "Before he left, he made me promise to take care of the people. He gave me his title, made me princess. I didn't want it. I just wanted to save lives. But I took the responsibility because someone had to." "How long ago was this?" 8 years. For 8 years. I've been trying to keep those people safe, keep them fed, keep them healthy. It's been so hard. The Dominion left us alone because we were too small to matter, but they didn't help us either. We had nothing. We still have nothing." Jack listened to everything. He didn't interrupt or judge. When she finished, he simply said, "You saved them. Barely. So many died anyway. From sickness, from hunger. I wasn't enough. But you tried. You kept trying even when it was hopeless." They reached her quarters. Lyra stood at the door, looking at Jack with those large, dark eyes. "Captain Morrison, please tell me. Why did you choose me?" Jack looked at her for a long moment. "Because you saved my people too." Before Lyra could ask what he meant, he walked away down the corridor. That night, Lyra couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about his words. Saved his people? She had never even met humans before the war ended. How could she have saved them? On the third day, they arrived at Haven's Rest. Lyra stood at the observation window and watched her home come into view. It looked so small compared to the planets they had passed. Just a gray moon covered in old buildings and makeshift structures. Jack stood beside her. "Tell me about it." Lyra pointed to different areas. "That's the main settlement. About 4,000 people live there. Over there is the medical district where I work. Those buildings on the east side are schools. We teach children from 20 different species." "It looks peaceful." "It is. Everyone there has known war. They want peace more than anything." The ship descended toward a landing platform. As they got closer, Lyra could see people gathering. They had heard their princess was returning. Many looked worried. A human ship arriving could mean trouble. When the ship landed and the door opened, Lyra stepped out first. The crowd rushed forward, calling her name. Children ran to hug her. Adults asked if she was okay. An elderly Krillian woman with 4 arms touched Lyra's face gently, checking for injuries. "I'm fine," Lyra assured them. "Everything is fine." But the crowd looked at Jack and his crew with fear and suspicion. Humans had won the war. Humans were powerful now. What did they want with Haven's Rest? Jack stepped forward. The crowd went silent. "My name is Captain Jack Morrison," he said clearly. "I came here with Princess Lyra. I'm not here to hurt anyone or take anything. I'm here to help." The crowd muttered. They didn't believe him. Why would a human help them? An old Valkesh man stepped forward. His name was Elder Kane, and he had been Lord Tarron's advisor. Now he advised Lyra. "Captain Morrison, with respect, humans don't help people like us. We are the defeated, the forgotten. Why are you really here?" Jack looked at Lyra. "May I tell them?" Lyra nodded, confused. Jack turned back to the crowd. 2 years ago during the war, my ship found a damaged Dominion medical vessel. I boarded it expecting to find soldiers. Instead, I found refugees. And I found 3 human children." The crowd was completely silent now. Those children had been taken when the Dominion attacked their colony. Their parents were dead. They should have been slaves or worse, but someone saved them. A Valkesh doctor risked everything to hide them on that medical ship and get them to safety. Jack looked at Lyra. That doctor was Princess Lyra. Lyra's eyes went wide. She remembered that day. The damaged ship. The human captain who had been so angry at first, then so grateful. But she hadn't known his name. She hadn't known it was Jack Morrison. "You," she whispered. "That was you?" Jack nodded. "You saved those children. You saved others, too. I've spent 2 years tracking your activities. You saved over 200 human civilians during the war. You risked your life again and again." Tears ran down Lyra's face. I couldn't let them die. I couldn't." Jack turned back to the crowd. "I chose Princess Lyra because she showed me something I had forgotten. She showed me that even in war, kindness matters. That mercy is not weakness. She is the strongest person I've ever met." The crowd stared in shock. Then slowly, Elder Kane began to clap. Others joined in. Soon everyone was clapping and cheering. Lyra stood there, overwhelmed. She finally understood. Jack hadn't chosen her because she was weak. He had chosen her because of who she was, because of what she had done. For the first time in years, she felt hope. That evening, after the crowd had dispersed and the celebration had ended, Jack asked to speak with Lyra privately. They sat in her small office, a modest room filled with medical files and supply lists. Through the window, they could see Haven's Rest under the stars. Lyra made tea with her own hands, a Valkesh custom when hosting important guests. Her hands still shook slightly as she poured. Everything felt different now. She understood part of why Jack had chosen her, but she sensed there was more to the story. "You saved those 3 children," Lyra said as she handed him a cup. "That's why you chose me?" Jack held the warm cup, but didn't drink. He stared into the tea like he was looking for words in it. "That's part of it, but there's more I need to tell you." He was quiet for a long moment. Lyra waited. She had learned that sometimes silence was necessary for people to find courage. "I wasn't always the man you see now," Jack finally said. "Before the war, I was different. I was a transport pilot, moving cargo between colonies. I had a wife. Her name was Kate. We had a daughter, Sophie. She was 6 years old." Lyra felt her chest tighten. She knew where this story was going. The Dominion attacked New Horizon Colony without warning. It was one of the first attacks of the war. They wanted to make an example, to show humanity that resistance was useless. Kate and Sophie were there. I was off-world on a supply run. Jack's hands gripped the cup tighter. By the time I got back, the colony was burning. I searched for days through the ruins. I found them in the shelter where they had been hiding. They didn't make it. "I'm so sorry," Lyra whispered. "I joined the military after that. I was good at fighting. I was angry, and anger made me dangerous to the Dominion. I won battles. I got promoted. I became a hero." He said the word like it tasted bitter. "But inside I was empty. I fought not to save people, but to destroy the enemy." "There's a difference." Jack finally looked at Lyra. His eyes were red. "I became someone who scared my own crew sometimes. I took risks that got people killed. I stopped seeing the enemy as people. They were just targets, things to destroy." "What changed?" Lyra asked softly. "That medical ship. When I boarded it, I was ready to kill everyone on board. In my mind, they were all Dominion, all guilty. But then I saw those 3 children, human children, crying and scared. And I saw you. Jack set down his cup. You were terrified of me. I was covered in armor and weapons, and you knew I could kill you easily. But when I got close to those children, you stepped between us. You were ready to die to protect them, even though they weren't your species. Lyra remembered. She had been so afraid that day, but she couldn't let those children be hurt. You said something to me, Jack continued. You said, "Please, sir, they're just babies. If you must kill someone, kill me. Let them live." You were willing to die for human children. I couldn't let them die, Lyra said. They had already lost so much. That moment changed everything for me. I realized I had become the thing I hated. I was ready to kill without thinking, without seeing. You reminded me that there were good people on all sides, that the war wasn't about destroying everyone, but about protecting the innocent. Jack stood up and walked to the window. After that day, I started investigating you. It wasn't hard. You left a trail of saved lives behind you. Human refugees you hid from Dominion officers. Prisoners you treated and released. Children you smuggled to safety. You did all this while the Dominion could have executed you at any moment. Someone had to help them, Lyra said. But why you? You weren't a soldier. You weren't a rebel. You could have stayed quiet and safe. Lyra thought about the question. When I was young, my mother taught me something. She said that every life has value, and anyone who can save a life but chooses not to is as guilty as those who kill. I couldn't watch people die when I had the skills to save them. Jack turned to face her. That's exactly why I chose you. Not because you're weak. You're the strongest person I know. You have something that armies and weapons can't give. You have compassion, and you kept it even when the galaxy was full of hate. But I don't understand. How does choosing me help you? It doesn't help me, Jack said. It helps everyone. When the war ended, I had a choice. I could take power like the other officers did. Get a princess with armies and resources. Build strength through force. Or I could try to build something different. He walked back to the table and sat down across from Lyra. The war is over, but the galaxy is broken. There are millions of refugees with nowhere to go. Orphans, wounded, people who lost everything. Haven's Rest could be a symbol, a place where healing begins. My moon is too small, Lyra said. We can barely feed the people we have. Not if humanity helps. That's what I want to offer you. Not conquest, but partnership. Human resources, technology, and protection. In exchange, you do what you do best. You heal. You save lives. You show the galaxy that we can be better than we were during the war. Lyra stared at him. You want to help Haven's Rest? With no demands? No control? I want to help because it's the right thing to do. And because I need to make up for the darkness I carried during the war. Helping you helps me find my way back to who I used to be. The other human officers won't like this. They'll say you're foolish. Let them say it. They chose power. I'm choosing something more important. Lyra felt tears coming again. For 8 years she had struggled alone. She had watched people die because she didn't have enough medicine, enough food, enough resources. And now, this human captain was offering her everything she needed. Why do you trust me? She asked. You barely know me. Jack smiled for the first time since they met. It was a sad smile, but genuine. I know you better than you think. I've watched you for 2 years. I've seen the choices you make when no one is watching. That tells me who you are. I don't know if I can do this, Lyra admitted. Leading is hard. I'm not a real princess. Neither was Lord Terran a real warrior, but he fought to protect you. You don't need royal blood to be a leader. You just need to care. They talked long into the night. Jack explained his plans. He would use his influence with the human government to secure aid for Haven's Rest. Engineers would come to build better infrastructure. Medical ships would deliver supplies. Teachers would help establish schools. "What do you want in return?" Lyra asked. "Let us learn from you. Let us send people here to see how you've built peace among different species. Let Haven's Rest be an example." "And the contract? The one that says I'm your prize?" Jack pulled out a data pad. On it was the official document that gave him legal ownership of Lyra and Haven's Rest. He set it on the table between them, then pulled out a small device. He pressed a button, and the data pad sparked and went dark. "There is no contract," he said. "You're free. Haven's Rest is independent. I'm just asking to be your ally." Lyra picked up the destroyed data pad. "You could have controlled everything. Why destroy it?" "Because people can't be owned, and true partnerships require freedom, not force." The next morning, Jack called his crew together with Lyra and the community leaders of Haven's Rest. In front of everyone, he made his offer official. "I, Captain Jack Morrison, offer the full support of myself and my resources to Haven's Rest and Princess Lyra. This is not a conquest or a demand. This is an alliance between equals." Elder Caney spoke for the community. "And what happens if you change your mind? If you decide you want power after all? Then you tell me to leave, and I will. This moon belongs to its people, not to me." The leaders talked among themselves in various languages. Finally, Elder Caney nodded. "We accept your offer, Captain Morrison. Not because we trust all humans, but because Princess Lyra trusts you, and we trust her judgment." Over the next few days, Jack and his crew began working with the people of Haven's Rest. Lieutenant Brown, the red-haired woman, organized supply lists. Dr. Carter examined the medical facilities and made recommendations. Other crew members met with teachers, engineers, and farmers. Jack worked harder than anyone. He carried supplies, fixed broken equipment, and spent hours planning with Elder Kane and the other leaders. Lyra watched him carefully. This man had been a warrior, a destroyer. Now he was building. One afternoon, Lyra found Jack sitting alone near the landing platform. He was looking at a small picture, his face full of sadness. "Is that your family?" she asked gently. He nodded and handed her the picture. It showed a beautiful woman with dark hair and a little girl with her father's blue eyes. They were smiling, happy. "Kate and Sophie," he said. "This was taken a month before they died." "They would be proud of you," Lyra said. "I don't know about that. I did terrible things during the war. But you're trying to do better now. That's what matters." Jack looked at her. "Do you really believe people can change? After everything you've seen?" "I have to believe it," Lyra said. "Otherwise, what's the point of healing? We fix broken bodies hoping the person will make better choices afterward. We save lives hoping they'll be worth saving. Hope is what keeps us going." "You're wiser than you look," Jack said with a small smile. "I'm older than I look too," Lyra replied, making him laugh. That evening, Jack sent his first message to Earth's military command. He requested engineers, medical supplies, and funding for Haven's Rest. He knew the request would cause controversy. He knew some people would call him a traitor or a fool. But when he looked at Haven's Rest, at the children playing safely and the people working together, he knew he had made the right choice. This was more important than power. This was about building a future worth fighting for. Lyra stood beside him as they watched the sun set over Haven's Rest. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything. Thank you for reminding me why we fought the war in the first place. It wasn't to dominate. It was to protect people like you." In that moment, neither of them knew that their partnership would face terrible challenges. They didn't know that enemies were already planning to destroy what they were building. but they had hope. And sometimes, hope is enough to start changing the galaxy. 3 months passed. Haven's Rest was changing in ways Lyra had never imagined possible. The first human supply ships arrived carrying engineers, construction equipment, and enough food to feed the entire population for a year. Lyra cried when she saw it. For so long, she had struggled just to keep people alive. Now she didn't have to choose between feeding the children or the elderly. More ships came. Medical vessels brought advanced equipment and trained doctors. Teacher ships arrived with educational materials in dozens of languages. Construction crews began building proper homes to replace the temporary shelters. But the most amazing thing was how everyone worked together. Human engineers learned from alien builders. Valkesh doctors taught human medics about different species. Children from 20 different worlds attended the same schools. Jack was everywhere. He worked 16-hour days, helping with construction, solving problems, and negotiating with Earth's government for more resources. Lyra watched him transform from a war-hardened soldier into something else, a builder, a leader, a friend. They spent many evenings together, sitting on the roof of the medical center and watching the stars. Jack told her about Earth, about oceans and forests and cities that touched the sky. Lyra told him about Valkesh culture, about their music and art and ancient philosophies. "You should visit Earth someday," Jack said one night. "I think you'd like it." "Maybe," Lyra said, "if I can ever stop working long enough to travel." "You work too hard," says the man who hasn't taken a day off in 3 months. Jack laughed. It was a sound Lyra heard more often now. The sadness in his eyes was still there, but it was lighter, healing, like everything else on Haven's Rest. Not everyone was happy about the changes. News of Jack's choice had spread across human space and beyond. Many people didn't understand why he had chosen a powerless princess. Some thought he was betraying humanity by helping aliens. Others thought he was weak. Commander Ryan Blake, the man who had chosen the powerful Princess Zarazel, sent several messages criticizing Jack's decisions. "You're wasting resources on refugees," one message said. "While you play charity worker, I'm building a military force, real power. When the next war comes, you'll have nothing." Jack deleted the messages without responding. He knew Ryan wouldn't understand. Power meant different things to different people. But there were supporters, too. Some human officers, impressed by what Jack was building, sent supplies and volunteers. Scientists came to study how different species lived together peacefully. Artists came to document the transformation. Princess Zarazel herself visited Haven's Rest one day, along with Commander Blake. They landed in a large military ship, all weapons and armor. Lyra was nervous about meeting them, but Jack assured her everything would be fine. The meeting took place in the new community center, a building that had just been finished. Zarazel was tall and intimidating, with silver skin and eyes that glowed slightly. She wore armor that marked her as a warrior princess. Blake stood beside her, looking smug. "So this is what you chose," Blake said, looking around at the simple building. "Very modest." "It serves its purpose," Jack replied calmly. Princess Zarazel walked to the window and looked out at Haven's Rest. She saw children playing in a new park. She saw humans and aliens working together on construction projects. She saw people smiling, laughing, living. "I don't understand," she said finally. "You could have had armies, resources, power. Why choose this?" Lyra spoke up, surprising herself with her courage. "Because power doesn't mean anything if you don't use it to help people." Zarazel looked at her, those glowing eyes studying Lyra carefully. "You're the weak princess everyone laughs about." "Yes," Lyra said, lifting her chin. "I'm weak in war, but I'm strong in other ways." "What ways?" Lyra gestured to the window. "I can make people feel safe. I can heal their wounds. I can give them hope. Those things might not win battles, but they build futures." For a long moment, Zarazel was silent. Then she did something unexpected. She bowed slightly to Lyra, a sign of respect among her people. "Perhaps I chose wrong," she said quietly. So only Lyra and Jack could hear. "I have fleets and soldiers, but no one looks at me the way these people look at you." Blake was angry when they left. He didn't like that his princess had shown respect to Lyra, but Zarazel seemed thoughtful. She looked back at Haven's Rest as their ship departed. Not all visitors were peaceful. 2 months after that visit, a group of human extremists tried to sabotage the water treatment plant. They believed that helping aliens was a betrayal of humanity. They wanted to prove that Jack's project would fail. Jack's security teams caught them before they could do serious damage, but the attempt shook everyone. It proved that not all humans supported what they were building. Lyra found Jack that night sitting alone in the dark, looking troubled. "You can't save everyone," she said softly. "Those were humans, my own people. They wanted to poison the water supply. There are good and bad people in every species, Jack. You taught me that. Did I make a mistake? Am I putting your people in danger by bringing humans here?" Lyra sat beside him. "Before you came, we were dying slowly. Now we're living. Yes, there's danger, but there's also hope. I'll take hope over slow death any day." Jack looked at her. "How are you so brave?" "I'm not brave. I'm terrified most of the time. But I learned something from Lord Terran. He told me that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right even when you're afraid." Their friendship deepened over the following weeks. Lyra taught Jack about Valkesh meditation techniques to help with his nightmares about the war. Jack taught Lyra about human literature, reading her poetry and stories from Earth. One day, Elder Caney pulled Lyra aside. "The captain loves you," he said gently. Lyra blushed. "We're just friends." "Perhaps. But I've seen how he looks at you, and how you look at him. It's complicated. He lost his wife and daughter. I don't want to—" "Don't want to what? Be happy? Princess, you've spent 8 years caring for everyone else. Maybe it's time to let someone care for you." Lyra didn't know what to think about that. Her feelings for Jack were confusing. She cared about him deeply, but she didn't know if it was love or just gratitude and friendship. Meanwhile, threats were growing in the shadows. Admiral Krelzak, a former Dominion commander, was gathering forces. He had escaped Earth's justice and was hiding in the outer systems. He hated what Haven's Rest represented. To him, it was a sign that the Dominion had grown weak, that showing mercy to defeated enemies would lead to more rebellions. He began sending messages to old Dominion loyalists. "Haven's Rest must be destroyed," his messages said. "It's a symbol of human weakness and Dominion shame. We must show the galaxy that mercy is foolishness." Jack's intelligence network detected some of this activity, but not all of it. He increased security on Haven's Rest and installed defensive systems. But he didn't want to scare the residents by making the place feel like a military base. "We're trying to build peace," he told his security chief, a tough woman named Lieutenant Amy Ross. "Too many weapons sends the wrong message." "Captain, with respect, not enough weapons could get everyone killed." "I know. It's a balance. Do what you can without making this place feel like a prison." 6 months after Jack first arrived, Haven's Rest was almost unrecognizable. The population had grown to 8,000 as word spread about the sanctuary. New buildings stood where there had been tents. Schools were full. The medical center had expanded 3 times. The human government officially recognized Haven's Rest as an independent sanctuary world with special protection status. It was a huge victory. Lyra and Jack celebrated with the entire community. That night, on the roof of the medical center, Jack gave Lyra a gift. It was a small tree in a pot, a sapling from Earth. "It's an oak tree," he explained. "On Earth, oaks are symbols of strength and endurance. I thought you might like it." "It's beautiful," Lyra said, touching the small leaves gently. Thank you. You know, Jack said carefully, I've been thinking about staying here, permanently. Lyra's heart skipped. What about your military career? I can retire. I've done enough fighting. I'd rather spend my time building something that matters. Haven's Rest would be lucky to have you. That's not what I mean. Jack took a breath. Lyra, these past 6 months have been the happiest I've been since Kate and Sophie died. And it's because of you. You remind me every day that there's good in the galaxy, that kindness matters, that... He stopped, looking nervous. Lyra had never seen him nervous before. That what? She asked softly. That I can love again, if you'll let me. Lyra felt tears in her eyes. She had been so afraid to hope for this. Jack, I don't want to replace your family. You wouldn't replace them. You'd be something new, something I didn't think I'd ever find again. Lyra took his hand. I care about you too. More than I probably should. Why shouldn't you? Because I'm just a simple doctor who got lucky. You're a hero. No, Jack said firmly. You're the hero, I just finally recognized it. They sat together under the stars, holding hands, both afraid and hopeful about what the future might bring. But in the dark reaches of space, Admiral Krelzak was finalizing his plans. He had gathered old warships and loyal soldiers. He had made alliances with human extremists who hated Jack for helping aliens. The attack on Haven's Rest was coming, and it would test everything Jack and Lyra had built together. The attack came without warning. It was early morning on Haven's Rest. Children were heading to school. Farmers were tending their crops. Lyra was in the medical center checking on patients. Jack was in the security center reviewing supply reports. Then the alarms screamed. Captain Morrison, Lieutenant Ross shouted. We have multiple hostile ships dropping out of hyperspace. At least 15 warships mixed Dominion and human designs. Jack ran to the command display. His blood went cold. This wasn't a small raid. This was an invasion force. Sound the evacuation alarm. Get everyone to the shelters now. Across Haven's Rest, sirens wailed. People ran, parents grabbing children, teachers leading students to underground bunkers. They had practiced this drill, but no one thought it would really happen. Lyra was helping evacuate the medical center when Jack's voice came through her communicator. Lyra, get to the command bunker. They're going to hit us hard. I need to make sure all my patients are safe first. Lyra, please. I can't focus on the battle if I'm worried about you. She heard the fear in his voice. I'll be there soon, I promise. The first missile strikes hit the northern district. Buildings exploded. Fire spread. Jack watched on the monitors, his jaw clenched. The defensive shields were holding, but not for long. Return fire, he ordered. Target their lead ships. Haven's Rest had limited weapons, but they weren't completely defenseless. The orbital defense platforms Jack had installed began firing. 3 enemy fighters exploded, but more kept coming. A message came through on the enemy's frequency. Admiral Krelzak's face appeared on the screen. He was an old Dominion officer, his scaled skin marked with battle scars. Captain Morrison, Krelzak said, you've made yourself a target by showing weakness. Mercy to the defeated is foolishness. Today, Haven's Rest dies as an example to the galaxy. You're attacking civilians, Jack said. Children, refugees. They're all contaminated by your human weakness. The Dominion should have crushed humanity when we had the chance. Now you infect the galaxy with your pathetic compassion. The transmission cut off. More missiles rained down. Jack knew they couldn't win this fight alone. Haven's Rest was never meant to be a military base. He grabbed his communicator. This is Captain Jack Morrison broadcasting on all emergency frequencies. Haven's Rest is under attack. We have 8,000 civilians, including children from dozens of species. We need immediate assistance. He didn't know if anyone would come. He didn't know if anyone cared. Elder Caney appeared at the command center, breathless from running. Captain, the southern shelters are full. We're running out of safe places. Use the caves on the eastern ridge. They're not as comfortable, but they're safe from orbital strikes. Lyra finally arrived, her clothes covered in dust. All patients are evacuated. What can I do? Stay here, stay safe, please. Another explosion rocked the building. The shields were failing faster than expected. Captain, Lieutenant Ross said, her voice tight. A human ship just arrived. Wait, it's Commander Blake's ship. The Starhammer. Jack felt a surge of hope, then confusion. Blake had always opposed what he was doing here. Why would he help? Blake's voice came through the communications. Morrison, you're an idiot for building this place, but you're not a traitor. Hang on. We're engaging the enemy. The Starhammer was a heavy warship, much more powerful than the Defender. It tore into the enemy formation, its weapons blazing. 3 enemy ships exploded. Blake, why are you here? Jack asked. Because Zarazel told me to come. She said if I didn't help, she'd leave me. Turns out even warrior princesses have a soft spot for people who save children. More ships arrived. Small vessels from nearby colonies, trading ships armed with whatever weapons they had, even a few alien vessels from species that had refugees on Haven's Rest. The battle turned into chaos, ships fighting everywhere, missiles and energy beams lighting up the space around the moon. But Admiral Krelzak had been planning this for months. He had more ships hidden in reserve. As the Defenders fought his first wave, he brought in the second wave. 20 more warships appeared. We can't hold against this many, Lieutenant Ross said quietly. Jack knew she was right. They were badly outnumbered, but he wouldn't give up. Not while there were people to protect. Then something unexpected happened. A massive fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Dozens of ships. Jack's heart sank, thinking it was more enemies, but then he saw the markings. They were human military ships, and leading them was a massive carrier, the Valiant. This is Admiral Lisa Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet, a voice announced. All hostile forces are ordered to stand down immediately. Admiral Chen? Jack was stunned. What are you doing here? Saving your idealistic behind, Morrison. Did you really think Earth's government would let one of its heroes get killed? We've been monitoring the situation. When we detected the attack, we scrambled every available ship. But that wasn't all. More ships arrived from different directions. Princess Zarazel came with her own fleet. Other prize princesses brought what forces they could. Even some former Dominion worlds sent ships to help defend the sanctuary. Admiral Krelzak found himself surrounded. His 15 ships had become 50 in his favor, but now he faced over 100 ships allied against him. This is impossible, Krelzak snarled on an open channel. You're all fools. Mercy is weakness. No, Jack replied. Mercy is what brings people together. You came here with hate and violence. We built this place with hope and compassion. Look at who showed up to defend it. Humans, Valkesh, Krillians. Former enemies fighting side by side. That's not weakness. That's the future. Krelzak's forces tried to fight, but it was hopeless. One by one, his ships were destroyed or surrendered. The battle lasted only 20 more minutes. When it was over, Krelzak's command ship tried to escape. Admiral Chen's fleet disabled its engines. The old admiral was captured. The victory was celebrated across Haven's Rest. People emerged from shelters crying with relief. Fires were put out. The wounded were treated. But there were casualties. 32 people had died in the initial strikes. Jack stood at the memorial service 3 days later, his heart heavy. Lyra stood beside him, holding his hand. They died because I wasn't strong enough to protect them, Jack said quietly. No, Lyra replied. They died because evil people chose violence. But look around. Hundreds of ships came to help us. People from across the galaxy stood up to protect a small moon. That's because of what you built, what we built together. Admiral Chen visited Haven's Rest after the battle. She walked through the settlements, seeing the schools and medical centers and farms. She met families from different species living together peacefully. "I'll be honest, Morrison," she said. "When I first heard what you were doing, I thought you were crazy. Choosing a powerless princess over military assets seemed foolish, but now I understand." "What do you understand?" "That this is worth more than any fleet. This is proof that the war wasn't for nothing. We didn't fight just to defeat the Dominion. We fought to make a galaxy where places like this could exist." The human government officially recognized Haven's Rest as a protected world under Earth's defense umbrella. More resources were promised. Other worlds wanted to create similar sanctuaries, using Haven's Rest as a model. Princess Zarazel visited again, this time alone. She found Lyra working in the medical center. "I wanted to apologize," Zarazel said. "For what?" "For thinking you were weak. For looking down on you. I was wrong." "You came to help us," Lyra said. "That's what matters." "I came because you showed me something important. Power means nothing if you don't use it to protect people who can't protect themselves. I spent months building military strength, but I wasn't building anything that mattered." "You built something worth fighting for." The two princesses talked for hours. Zarazel asked questions about how Haven's Rest worked, how different species learned to live together. She wanted to create something similar in her own territory. Over the next few months, Haven's Rest continued to grow and heal. The buildings that were destroyed in the attack were rebuilt, stronger than before. The population increased as more refugees arrived, knowing they would be safe. Jack officially retired from the military. He became Haven's Rest's head of security and Lyra's partner in every sense. Their relationship deepened into love, built on shared values and mutual respect. One evening, a year after the attack, they stood on the roof of the medical center. The oak tree Jack had given Lyra was growing in a garden below, its branches reaching toward the sky. "Do you ever regret it?" Lyra asked. "Choosing me instead of power?" Jack pulled her close. "Never. Not for 1 second. Everyone thought I was the weakest princess." "You were never weak. You were always the strongest person in that room. It just took everyone else a while to see it." Below them, children played in the streets. Humans and aliens, laughing together. Teachers from Earth worked with Valkesh scholars. Former enemies shared meals and stories. "We changed things," Lyra said softly. "No," Jack replied. "You changed things. You changed me. You changed everyone who meets you. I just gave you the resources to do it on a bigger scale." Lyra smiled. "We changed each other." News of Haven's Rest spread across the galaxy. Other colonies started their own sanctuary programs. The prize system was abolished, replaced with genuine alliances based on mutual respect. Princess Zarazel and Commander Blake visited regularly, learning and sharing ideas. Admiral Krelzak's trial became a turning point. He was sentenced not to death, but to service. He would spend the rest of his life helping rebuild colonies destroyed by the war. It was justice built on restoration, not revenge. Years passed. Haven's Rest became Haven Station, a full world with over 50,000 residents. Lyra continued her medical work, now training doctors from across the galaxy in her techniques. Jack helped establish defenses for other sanctuary worlds. They had children of their own, a son and a daughter who grew up speaking 5 languages and playing with friends from dozens of species. Sophie and Kate would have loved them, Jack often thought, and he hoped somehow they knew that their deaths hadn't been meaningless. They had inspired Jack to find Lyra, and together they had helped heal a broken galaxy. Other officers who had chosen powerful princesses found that their prizes became less valuable over time. Military strength became less important in a peaceful era. But Haven's Rest, built on compassion and cooperation, grew more important every year. Commander Blake admitted to Jack one day, "You were right. I chose power. You chose purpose. Purpose lasts longer." On the 10th anniversary of Jack's choice, a monument was built in Haven's Rest's main square. It showed two figures, a human and a Valkesh, reaching out to each other. Below was an inscription in every language spoken on the world. Here stands proof that strength lies not in weapons, but in compassion, not in conquest, but in cooperation. The greatest victory is not defeating your enemies, but turning them into friends. Jack and Lyra stood at the dedication ceremony, their children beside them. Elder Caney, now very old, gave a speech about how one choice by one man had changed everything. Captain Morrison could have chosen power, the elder said, but he chose Princess Lyra. Everyone thought she was weak, but she taught us all what true strength means. And she taught him that the best revenge against hate is building something beautiful. As the sun set over Haven's Rest, painting the sky in colors both humans and Valkesh found beautiful, Jack turned to Lyra. "Do you know why I really chose you?" he asked. "You've told me many times. But there's one more reason I never said." "What's that?" "Because when I looked at you in that hall, scared and alone, I saw hope. After years of war and darkness, you were the first thing that made me think the galaxy might still be worth saving." Lyra kissed him softly. "And when I looked at you, I saw the same thing. A man who had lost everything but was still trying to find reasons to care." They stood together as stars appeared overhead, watching their children play with friends from across the galaxy. Jack had chosen the weakest princess, and in doing so, he had chosen the strongest future possible. The galaxy was watching Haven's Rest. And slowly, one world at a time, it was learning that compassion wasn't weakness. It was the foundation of true strength. The war was over. But something better had begun, something built not on conquest, but on hope. And it all started because one human soldier chose to see strength where others saw weakness. Because he chose love over power. Because he chose Lyra.